I've been thinking a lot lately about what it means to be a true leader. Not just someone with a fancy title or corner office, but the kind of person others genuinely look up to and want to follow. It's a journey, isn't it? A journey that starts right where you are right now. Leadership, real leadership, it's not about barking orders or being the loudest voice in the room. No, it's something far more subtle and far more powerful. It's about who you are at your core, the choices you make when no one's looking, and the impact you have on the lives around you. I remember a time, years ago, when I was just starting out in my career. I thought leadership was all about having all the answers, about never showing weakness. Boy, was I wrong. It took a mentor of mine to set me straight. He said to me, "Son, the day you think you have all the answers is the day you stop growing. And the day you stop growing is the day you stop leading." Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. They made me realize that true leadership isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about waking up every day with the intention to be just a little bit better than you were yesterday. To learn a little more, to understand a little deeper, to care a little more deeply. Becoming a leader others look up to isn't some distant goal you reach one day and then you're done. It's a daily commitment. It's in the small things. How you treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. How you own up to your mistakes. How you celebrate the successes of others as if they were your own. I've seen it time and time again. The leaders who truly inspire, who truly make a difference, they're not the ones with the biggest egos or the loudest voices. They're the ones who listen more than they speak. They're the ones who roll up their sleeves and get in the trenches with their team. They're the ones who see potential in others that those people don't even see in themselves. Now, I'm not saying this journey is easy. Far from it. There will be days when you doubt yourself, days when you feel like throwing in the towel. I've had my fair share of those days, believe me. But here's the thing. Those are the days that define you. Those are the days when true leaders are made. I remember one particular day, early in my career, I'd just been given my first big project to lead. I was excited, sure, but mostly I was terrified. I felt like a fraud, like any minute someone was going to figure out that I had no idea what I was doing. The night before the project kickoff, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with all the things that could go wrong. And then, in the quiet of that sleepless night, I had a realization. I didn't have to have all the answers. My job wasn't to be perfect. My job was to bring out the best in my team, to create an environment where they felt empowered to contribute their best ideas, to take risks, to innovate. The next morning, I walked into that kickoff meeting with a completely different mindset. Instead of trying to prove how much I knew, I focused on listening. I asked questions. I encouraged ideas from everyone, no matter their position. And you know what? That project ended up being one of the most successful in the company's history, not because of me, but because of what we achieved together. That experience taught me a valuable lesson about leadership. It's not about being the star of the show. It's about being the director, the one who brings out the best performances in others. It's about creating a vision that inspires, that makes people want to give their all. Not because they have to, but because they want to. When you become the kind of leader others look up to, something magical happens. People don't just follow you because of your position or title. They follow you because you inspire them to be better versions of themselves. They follow you because you've shown them what's possible when we work together towards a common goal. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, that sounds great, but I'm not in a leadership position. How does this apply to me? Well, let me tell you something. Leadership isn't about position. It's about influence. And every single one of us has the ability to influence others, to make a positive impact in our own sphere of influence. Maybe you're a parent, shaping the future through your children. Maybe you're a teacher, molding young minds. Maybe you're an entry-level employee with fresh ideas. Wherever you are, whatever you do, you have the opportunity to lead, to set an example, to be the kind of person others look at and think, I want to be more like that. I once met a janitor at a large corporation. Now, most people would think, janitor. What kind of leadership could they possibly demonstrate? But let me tell you, this man was one of the most inspiring leaders I've ever encountered. He took pride in his work, always going above and beyond. He knew everyone's name, from the CEO to the interns, and greeted them with a smile every day. He organized volunteer events for his coworkers, bringing people together from all levels of the company. That janitor, he didn't have a fancy title, he didn't have a corner office, but he had influence. He made people's days better. He brought out the best in others. He led by example. And in doing so, he elevated not just himself, but everyone around him. That's the kind of leadership I'm talking about. The kind that's not confined to boardrooms or corner offices. The kind that's available to each and every one of us if we choose to embrace it. So how do we become that kind of leader? The kind everyone looks up to? Well, it starts with self-awareness. You've got to know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your values. Because here's the thing, you can't lead others until you can lead yourself. Self-awareness isn't just about knowing your strengths and patting yourself on the back. It's about facing your weaknesses head on. It's about being honest with yourself about where you need to improve. And let me tell you, that's not always comfortable, but comfort is the enemy of growth. And without growth, there is no leadership. I remember a time when I had to face one of my own weaknesses. I was always the kind of person who needed to be right. I'd argue my point to death, even when deep down I knew I might be wrong. It was my way of feeling in control. But one day, a colleague pulled me aside after a particularly heated meeting. He said, "You know, you're so focused on being right that you're missing out on the chance to learn something new." Those words stung. But you know what? They were exactly what I needed to hear. It made me realize that my need to be right was actually holding me back as a leader. It was shutting down dialogue, stifling creativity, and honestly, it was making people not want to work with me. From that day on, I made a conscious effort to listen more and speak less, to ask questions instead of making statements, to be open to the possibility that I might be wrong and that someone else might have a better idea. And you know what? It transformed not just my leadership, but my entire life. That's the power of self-awareness and the willingness to change. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it, because when you work on yourself, when you strive to be better every day, you inspire others to do the same. And isn't that what great leadership is all about? Being a leader that others look up to isn't just about who you are. It's about where you're going. And more importantly, it's about your ability to paint a picture of that destination so vivid, so compelling, that others want to come along for the ride. Vision isn't just some corporate buzzword. It's not about fancy mission statements or 5-year plans. Vision is about seeing possibilities where others see obstacles. It's about imagining a better future and having the courage to pursue it, even when others say it can't be done. I'm reminded of a story about a young entrepreneur I met a few years back. She had this idea for a business that everyone said was crazy. It'll never work, they told her. The market's not ready. But you know what? She saw something others didn't. She had a vision of how her product could change lives, and she pursued it with everything she had. There were setbacks, sure, times when even she doubted herself, but she kept that vision in front of her. She refined it, she shared it, she lived it. And slowly but surely, others started to see it too. Today, her company is revolutionizing its industry, creating jobs, and yes, changing lives. That's the power of vision. It's not just about having a good idea. It's about believing in that idea so deeply, so passionately, that it becomes contagious. People don't follow leaders because of their fancy strategies or their impressive resumes. They follow leaders who make them believe in something bigger than themselves. So ask yourself, what's your vision? What future do you see that others don't? And more importantly, how are you sharing that vision? Are you painting a picture so vivid, so exciting, that others can't help but want to be a part of it. Remember, as a leader, your job isn't to have all the answers. Your job is to ask the right questions, to challenge the status quo, to imagine what if, and then have the courage to pursue it. You can have all the charisma in the world, all the vision, all the skills, but if you don't have integrity, it's all built on sand. Integrity isn't just about being honest, although that's certainly part of it. Integrity is about being whole, being consistent. It's about your words and actions aligning not just some of the time, but all of the time. It's about doing the right thing, even when, no, especially when no one is watching. I've seen leaders who talk a big game about values and ethics, but when push comes to shove, when it might cost them something, those values go right out the window. And let me tell you, people notice. They might not say anything, but they notice. And once that trust is broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild. On the flip side, I've seen leaders who stand by their principles, even when it's difficult, even when it costs them something. And you know what? That's the kind of leadership that inspires loyalty. That's the kind of leadership that people respect, that they want to emulate. I remember a CEO I once worked with. His company was going through tough times, and he had to make some hard decisions. Now, he could have easily protected his own salary, his own position. Many would have. But instead, he took the biggest pay cut of anyone in the company. He was the first one in and the last one out every day. He was transparent about the challenges they were facing and the steps they needed to take to turn things around. It wasn't easy. There were still layoffs, still tough decisions to be made. But because of his integrity, because he led by example, the entire company rallied. People worked harder than they ever had before, not because they had to, but because they were inspired by his leadership. They trusted him, and they wanted to be part of the solution. That company, they not only survived those tough times, they came out stronger on the other side, and it all started with a leader who understood the power of integrity. So ask yourself, are you the same person in the boardroom as you are in the break room? Do your actions match your words? Are you willing to make the hard choices, to do what's right even when it costs you something? Because that, my friends, is what separates good leaders from great ones. Being a leader that others look up to isn't just about being strong or decisive or visionary. It's about being human. It's about understanding and connecting with the people you lead on a deeper level. Empathy in leadership isn't about being soft or weak. Far from it. Empathy is about having the emotional intelligence to understand what motivates people, what their fears and aspirations are. It's about creating an environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued. I once knew a manager who prided himself on being tough. He thought empathy was for the weak. His team, they were miserable. Productivity was down, turnover was high. He couldn't understand why. I'm pushing them to be their best, he'd say. But what he didn't realize was that by ignoring the human element, he was actually bringing out the worst in his team. Contrast that with another leader I've had the privilege of working with. She had this uncanny ability to really listen to her team, not just to their words, but to what was behind those words. She could sense when someone was struggling, even if they didn't say it outright. And she'd take the time to check in, to offer support, to help them work through whatever was holding them back. The result? Her team would move mountains for her. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They felt valued, understood, supported. And that translated into higher productivity, more innovation, and a workplace culture that people actually looked forward to being part of. That's the power of empathetic leadership. It's not about being everyone's best friend or solving all their problems. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to bring their whole selves to work, where they know their leader sees them as human beings, not just cogs in a machine. So how do we cultivate empathy as leaders? It starts with listening, real listening, Not just waiting for your turn to speak, but truly seeking to understand. It's about asking questions, being curious about the people you lead. What are their hopes, their fears, their challenges? What motivates them? It's also about being vulnerable yourself, sharing your own struggles, your own learning experiences. Because here's the thing, people don't expect their leaders to be perfect, but they do expect them to be real. I remember a time when I made a pretty big mistake early in my leadership journey. I was terrified to admit it to my team. I thought it would undermine my authority, make them lose respect for me. But you know what? When I finally owned up to it, something amazing happened. Not only did they not lose respect for me, their respect actually increased because they saw that I was human, that I was willing to be vulnerable, to learn, to grow. That experience taught me a valuable lesson about leadership. It's not about being infallible. It's about being authentic. It's about creating an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, as long as we learn from them. Where it's okay to not have all the answers, as long as we're willing to find them together. Empathy in leadership also means understanding that everyone has a life outside of work, that sometimes personal challenges can affect professional performance. A truly great leader recognizes this and responds with compassion and flexibility. I once had an employee who was consistently underperforming. The easy thing would have been to reprimand him or put him on a performance improvement plan. But something told me there was more to the story. So I took him aside one day and simply asked, "Is everything okay?" It turned out he was going through a difficult divorce and was struggling to balance his personal life with his work responsibilities. By showing empathy, by being willing to listen and understand, we were able to work out a flexible arrangement that allowed him to take care of his personal matters while still meeting his work obligations. The result? Not only did his performance improve dramatically, but he became one of the most loyal and hardworking members of the team. All because someone took the time to see him as a person, not just an employee. That's the kind of leadership that inspires loyalty. That's the kind of leadership that brings out the best in people. And ultimately, isn't that what being a leader is all about? The moment you think you know it all is the moment you stop being an effective leader. The world is changing at an unprecedented pace. What worked yesterday might not work today, and what works today might be obsolete tomorrow. As leaders, we have a responsibility to stay ahead of the curve, to constantly be learning, growing, and evolving. I'm reminded of a CEO I once knew. He'd been incredibly successful in the '80s and in '90s, built a great company. But as the digital age dawned, he refused to adapt. This internet thing is just a fad, he'd say. We've always done things this way, and it's worked fine. Well, you can probably guess how that story ended. His once thriving company became obsolete, overtaken by more agile, forward-thinking competitors. Contrast that with another leader I've had the pleasure of knowing. She's in her 60s now, but you'd never know it from talking to her. She's always got her finger on the pulse of the latest trends, always learning new things. I remember asking her once how she stays so current. You know what she told me? The day I stop learning is the day I stop leading. That's the mindset of a true leader. Someone who understands that leadership isn't a destination, it's a journey of constant growth, constant improvement. So how do we cultivate this mindset of continuous learning? Well, it starts with curiosity, being genuinely interested in the world around you, asking questions, seeking out new experiences, being open to new ideas. It means reading widely, and not just in your field. Some of the best insights come from unexpected places. It means surrounding yourself with people who challenge you, who bring different perspectives to the table. It means being willing to admit when you don't know something and being eager to learn. I've made it a habit to try and learn something new every day. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but it's always something. And you know what? It's not just made me a better leader, It's made life a whole lot more interesting. Now, this commitment to learning, it's not just about you. As a leader, you set the tone for your entire organization. When you demonstrate a passion for growth and learning, it becomes contagious. Your team starts to embody that same spirit of curiosity and innovation. I remember visiting a company once where the CEO had instituted what he called Curiosity Fridays. Every Friday afternoon, employees were encouraged to step away from their regular work and learn something new. Maybe it was taking an online course. Maybe it was shadowing someone in a different department. Maybe it was experimenting with a new idea. The only rule was that it had to be something that expanded their horizon. The results were remarkable. Not only did productivity and innovation increase, but employee satisfaction went through the roof. People felt valued, they felt invested in. And that company, they're now leading their industry in innovation. That's the power of creating a culture of continuous learning. It's not just about acquiring new skills or knowledge. It's about fostering a mindset of growth, of possibility. It's about creating an environment where people feel empowered to think differently, to challenge the status quo, to imagine new possibilities. But here's the thing about continuous learning. It's not always comfortable. In fact, if you're doing it right, it should make you uncomfortable sometimes. Because real growth, real learning happens when we step outside our comfort zones. I remember the first time I had to give a major presentation early in my career, I was terrified. Public speaking was way outside my comfort zone. But I knew it was a skill I needed to develop if I wanted to be an effective leader. So I took a deep breath, stepped up to that podium, and gave it my all. Was it perfect? Far from it. But you know what? I learned more from that one experience than I had from a dozen books on public speaking. And each time I did it after that, it got a little bit easier, a little bit better. That's the thing about growth. It's often uncomfortable in the moment, but it's always rewarding in the long run. And as leaders, we need to not only embrace that discomfort ourselves, but also create an environment where our teams feel safe stepping out of their comfort zones too. In a world that often equates leadership with dominance and ego, true humility can be a game changer. Humility in leadership doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that no matter how high you climb, no matter how successful you become, there's always more to learn, always room for improvement. I've seen leaders who let success go to their heads. They start believing their own hype, thinking they have all the answers. And you know what? That's usually the beginning of the end for them. Because when you think you know it all, you stop listening. You stop learning. You stop growing. But the leaders who truly inspire, who truly make a lasting impact, they're the ones who remain humble. They're the ones who are quick to give credit and slow to take it. They're the ones who aren't afraid to say, I don't know, or I made a mistake. I remember a CEO I once worked with. His company had just had a record-breaking year. At the annual meeting, everyone was expecting him to take a victory lap. Instead, he got up there and talked about all the things they could have done better. He thanked every department, highlighting specific contributions. And then he said something I'll never forget. Our success this year isn't a destination. It's a stepping stone. We've proven what we're capable of. Now let's see how much further we can go. That CEO, he went on to lead that company to even greater heights because his humility inspired people. It made them want to work harder, to be better, to reach higher. Humility in leadership isn't about downplaying your abilities or achievements. It's about recognizing that no one person is responsible for success. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, where everyone feels they have a stake in the outcome. It's also about being open to feedback, even when it's difficult to hear. I make it a point to regularly ask my team, what could I be doing better? How can I support you more effectively? And let me tell you, sometimes the answers are hard to swallow, but they always make me a better leader. Humility also means being willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work, whatever that work might be. It means never asking your team to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. I once knew a manager who thought certain tasks were beneath him. He'd delegate everything, never getting his hands dirty. His team resented him for it. They saw him as out of touch, disconnected from the real work. Contrast that with another leader I've had the privilege of working with, the CEO of a large company, but you'd often find him on the factory floor talking with workers, understanding their challenges firsthand. During crunch times, he'd be right there with everyone else, working late, solving problems. That's the kind of leader people respect. That's the kind of leader people will go the extra mile for. The ability to inspire and motivate others, because at the end of the day, that's what leadership is all about. It's not just about achieving goals or hitting targets. It's about bringing out the best in people, helping them reach their full potential. The best leaders I've known, they don't just tell people what to do. They inspire them to want to do it. They create a sense of purpose, a sense of mission that goes beyond just earning a paycheck or meeting a quota. I remember a teacher I had in high school. Now, most kids dreaded history class, but not in Mr. Johnson's class. He had this way of making history come alive. He didn't just teach dates and facts. He drew parallels to current events. He challenged us to think critically about the past and how it shapes our present and future. But more than that, he believed in us. He saw potential in each of his students that we didn't even see in ourselves. And because he believed in us, we started to believe in ourselves. I can't tell you how many of my classmates went on to careers in history, politics, education, all because one teacher inspired us to see the world differently, to see ourselves differently. That's the power of inspirational leadership. It's about painting a vision of what's possible. It's about helping people see their own potential and giving them the confidence to reach for it. Now, inspiration isn't about grand speeches or motivational posters. It's about your actions, your attitude, your energy every single day. It's about showing up with passion and purpose, even on the tough days, especially on the tough days. I once worked with a team that was facing a seemingly impossible deadline. Morale was low, people were stressed, some were even talking about quitting. The project leader could have cracked the whip, could have pressured everyone to work harder. Instead, he did something remarkable. He called a team meeting. But instead of talking about the project, he talked about why their work mattered. He reminded them of the impact their product would have on people's lives. He shared stories of potential users and how this product could change their world. And then he said something I'll never forget. We have the opportunity to make a real difference here. It won't be easy, but I believe in this team. I believe in each and every one of you. And I know that together, we can make this happen. The energy in that room shifted instantly. People who'd been ready to quit were suddenly fired up, ready to give it their all. And you know what? We hit that impossible deadline. Not because we were forced to, but because we were inspired to. That's the difference inspirational leadership makes. It turns have to into want to. It transforms obligations into opportunities. It changes clock punchers into passionate advocates for a shared vision. But here's the thing about inspiration. It's not a one-time event. It's not something you can check off your to-do list. It's a daily commitment. It's about consistently embodying the values and vision you're asking others to embrace. I make it a point to start each day by reminding myself of the why behind what we're doing. Why does our work matter? Who are we serving? What difference are we making in the world? And then I make sure to share that why with my team to keep that sense of purpose front and center. Because when people understand the why, when they feel connected to a larger purpose, they'll move mountains to make it happen. They'll push through challenges. They'll go above and beyond. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Now, let's talk about something that I believe separates good leaders from great ones: the ability to build and nurture strong relationships. Because leadership at its core is about people. It's about understanding them, connecting with them, bringing out the best in them. I've seen leaders who think it's all about strategy and tactics, about crunching numbers and optimizing processes. And don't get me wrong, those things are important. But if you can't connect with people, if you can't build trust and rapport, all the strategy in the world won't save you. Building strong relationships starts with genuine interest in others. It's about taking the time to really get to know your team, not just as employees, but as people. What are their dreams, their fears, their strengths, their challenges? I make it a point to have regular one-on-one meetings with each member of my team. And we don't just talk about work, we talk about life, about their goals, about what's important to them. Because when you understand what makes someone tick, you can lead them more effectively. You can motivate them, support them, challenge them in ways that resonate with who they are as individuals. But building relationships isn't just about your direct reports. It's about cultivating connections throughout your organization and beyond. It's about breaking down silos, fostering collaboration, creating a network of relationships that can help you and your team succeed. I remember a leader I once worked with who made it a point to know everyone in the company, from the C-suite to the mailroom. He'd stop by different departments regularly just to chat, to understand their challenges, to see how he could help. And you know what? When challenges arose, when we did cross-functional collaboration, things happened smoothly because he had already laid the groundwork of trust and mutual respect. Now, building strong relationships doesn't mean being everyone's best friend. It doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations or hard decisions. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Strong relationships give you the foundation to have those tough conversations, to make those hard calls, because there's a bedrock of trust and mutual respect. I've had to let people go over the course of my career. It's never easy, but I've found that when you've invested in building a strong relationship, even those difficult conversations can be handled with dignity and respect. And often, those as individuals have come back to me later, thanking me for how the situation was handled, even if they didn't like the outcome in the moment. Building strong relationships also means being reliable, being a person of your word. It means following through on your commitments, being there when you say you'll be there, doing what you say you'll do. It seems simple, but you'd be surprised how rare it is and how much it matters. I once worked with a leader who was brilliant, charismatic, full of great ideas, but he was unreliable. He'd make promises he couldn't keep, set meetings, and then not show up. And you know what? Despite all his talent, people stopped trusting his effectiveness as a leader crumbled, all because he couldn't be counted on. Contrast that with another leader I know. She's not the most charismatic person, not the one with the flashiest ideas, but she's rock solid. When she says she'll do something, it gets done. When she sets a meeting, she's there fully present. And people respect her for it. They trust her, they'll follow her anywhere. That's the power of building strong, trust-based relationships. It's not about being the smartest person in the room or the most charismatic. It's about being someone people can count on, someone who genuinely cares, someone who brings out the best in others. Now, as we wrap up our discussion on leadership, I want to touch on something that I believe is absolutely crucial: the importance of authenticity. In a world full of polished personas and carefully curated images, being genuinely, unapologetically yourself can be your greatest strength as a leader. Authenticity in leadership isn't about sharing every thought that crosses your mind or airing all your dirty laundry. It's about being true to your values, being consistent in your words and actions, and being willing to show your human side. I've seen leaders who put on a different persona when they step into the office. They think they need to be someone else to be respected, to be effective. But you know what? People can sense inauthenticity a mile away. And when they sense it, trust erodes. The most effective leaders I've known are those who are comfortable in their own skin. They know their strengths, they acknowledge their weaknesses, and they're not afraid to be vulnerable when the situation calls for it. I remember a time early in my career when I made a pretty big mistake on a project. I was tempted to try and cover it up, to shift blame. But instead, I took a deep breath and owned up to it. I went to my boss, explained what happened, and laid out a plan to fix it. You know what surprised me? Instead of anger or disappointment, my boss thanked me for my honesty. He said, "This is how we learn and grow. I appreciate your integrity in coming to me directly." That moment taught me a valuable lesson about the power of authenticity in leadership. Being authentic also means being consistent. It means your actions align with your words. It means you live the values you preach. But let me tell you, people are watching. They notice when you say one thing and do another. I once worked with a company that had work-life balance as one of its core values. But the CEO would send emails at all hours of the night and weekend expecting immediate responses. The message was clear. Our stated values didn't align with our actual culture. And it created a sense of cynicism and disengagement among the staff. Contrast that with another leader I know. She's a big proponent of work-life balance, and she walks the talk. She doesn't send work emails outside of business hours unless it's a genuine emergency. She takes her vacation time and encourages her team to do the same. And you know what? Her team is more productive, more engaged, and more loyal because of it. Authenticity in leadership also means being willing to admit when you don't have all the answers. It means being open to feedback even when it's hard to hear. It means showing your team that it's okay to be human, to make mistakes, to learn and grow. I make it a point to share my own learning experiences with my team. When I face a challenge, when I learn something new, I talk about it openly because I want them to see that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed to growth, to improvement, to becoming better every day. And here's the thing about authenticity. It's contagious. When you're real, when you're genuine, it gives others permission to do the same. It creates an environment of trust, of openness, of honest communication. And in that kind of environment, amazing things can happen. So as you continue on your leadership journey, remember this: your greatest asset as a leader isn't your title, your expertise, or your charisma. It's your authenticity. It's your willingness to be real, to be human, to be yourself. Because at the end of the day, people don't follow titles or org charts. They follow people, real people, with strengths and weaknesses, with vision and values. They follow leaders who inspire them not just to do better, but to be better. And that, my friends, is what it means to be a leader that everyone looks up to. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about being committed to growth. Your own and others, it's about having the courage to be yourself, to stand for something, to make a difference. As you walk out of here today, think about who you are as a leader. Are you being true to yourself? Are you living your values? Are you creating an environment where others can do the same? Because the world needs authentic leaders now more than ever. Leaders who can navigate uncertainty with grace. Leaders who can inspire hope in challenging times. Leaders who can bring people together, who can bring out the best in others. And that leader can be you. Not some idealized version of you, but the real you, with all your strengths, all your quirks, all your unique experiences and perspectives. Lead with authenticity, lead with integrity, lead with empathy. Be the kind of leader you would want to follow. Be the kind of leader that everyone looks up to. Because when you do that, you don't just change your team, your organization, or your industry. You change the world. And isn't that what leadership is really all about?